At the outset, I prayed for wisdom, knowledge, and discernment about how to fix people faster, to get them out of pain faster than was available anywhere else. And God has been gracious enough to answer that prayer continuously through the years.
Welcome to The Unbridled Creative, where courage meets calling. If you've ever felt that tug in your heart, that whisper that says there's more, but you're stuck in fear, burnout, or maybe just a version of success that doesn't feel like freedom, then this podcast is for you.
And we're here to inspire, equip, and empower you to build your business with faith, not fear, and to remind you that your calling is worth chasing.
So, let's do this.
This episode of the Unbridled Creative Podcast is brought to you by our friends at L-Card Pro. Not only is it the smartest digital business card for thousands of enterprise users, but it now comes with built-in lead capture technology. Whether you're at a trade show, conference, or simply sharing your L-Card link, you'll know who's interested, even when they don't fill out a form. Turn anonymous interactions into real connections at lcardapp.com.
Ken Moench is the founder of the Mensch Method, a no-frills, all-results approach to massage therapy that's built a loyal following across the Austrian metro. You won't find candles, soft music, or dim lighting in his studios. What you'll find is a team of highly trained therapists delivering real relief through a method that is as intense as it is effective. Known for the unapologetic motto, "It hurts, but it works," the Mensch Method doesn't chase temporary relaxation. It's about transformation. Ken's been doing this work for over 30 years, specializing in injury rehabilitation and developing a unique blend of myofascial release, deep tissue, and trigger point therapy that gets to the root of the problem fast. And while Ken might not be on the table himself anymore, he still trains and oversees therapists across all of their locations, making sure the method stays true to the mission: fewer visits, faster healing, and results that actually last. This episode is for the entrepreneur who's willing to carve out their own path, challenge the status quo, and build something lasting out of sheer conviction. Ken's story is one of passion, precision, and perseverance, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Ken, welcome to the Unbridled Creative.
Thank you, Laura. I'm so happy I'm here with you guys today.
Well, Ken, one thing that stood out to me was the word transformation. It's something that we relate with a lot, and why we do this show to help others transform. We thought, what a great person to have on this show to tell us a bit about your transformation, who you are, and the exciting work you're doing today. Could you tell us, dig in a little bit for our listeners?
Sure. I have not always been a massage therapist. As a matter of fact, when I went to massage school, I had never had a massage before. It was a way to get from point A to point B. I was 3 classes away from getting my undergraduate degree so that I could get into PT school. Those classes were only offered in the middle of the workday. I was married, had 2 kids. I couldn't quit my job, so I had to figure out a way to get that done. Massage school was simply to clear up my schedule, free it up so that I could get my classes in so that I could get to PT school. What happened was my boss at St. David's let me start working on people and just doing deep tissue at St. David's, where I was working at the time in the rehab center. And what happened was astonishing to me. I would work on people once or twice and fix something that had been problematic for the therapist to get to in weeks or months. And they were becoming pain-free, and all I was doing was deep tissue. That was all I knew. So I had to decide at that point, do I want to continue learning how not to fix people quickly, or did I want to actually figure out a better, faster way to do that? And that was not a hard choice. I had spent years getting ready to go to PT school, and I jumped ship as soon as I saw that there was another path to get where I actually wanted to go. And so that was a key moment that changed everything, because that was the passion. It was I saw way too many people in pain. My dad was in pain before he passed. with condition that I eventually had, which was low back herniations and things like that. And my grandmother was limping around with lack of blood supply to her foot because she'd been bit by a snake when she was much younger, and that was debilitating her. There was just too when I looked around, there were just too many people in pain, and I needed to get the fastest, best way to do that. Now, I can't take credit for the treatment method that we've developed over the past bunch of years because at the outset, I prayed for wisdom, knowledge, and discernment about how to fix people faster, to get them out of pain faster than was available anywhere else. And God has been gracious enough to answer that prayer continuously through the years. He's given me bits and pieces at a time because my little brain is far too small to have dumped all of it in at once. And so again, I take no credit for any of it. I am grateful for the information I have and the ability to actually impact people's lives.
And we're grateful that you do that because people deal with pain all the time. That's the biggest debilitating thing that causes people to lose hope. And oftentimes they lose their faith because they just can't get out of it. Tell us about your journey a little bit. Go into depth, like when you stepped out away from, you like jumped the fence from physical therapy to massage instantly like that when you realized, oh gosh, this is the solution. Give us a picture of, you obviously may not have pictured yet where you're at now because you have multiple locations and you have many employees, that people who train with you. So tell us a little bit about that journey. What happened?
It went okay. So again, you can't just jump from one to the other because I had no clients yet. So I was still working at the hospital full time during the day. I started working on people at night in the evenings as I got referrals from people within the hospital. I had doctors referring people to me. They sent me over to Austin City Limits because they knew the people over there that were clients of theirs, that type of thing. So when I got to one or two clients a day in the evening, I went to half days at the hospital where I was making $9 an hour with no benefits. Okay. And so I can do math, not advanced. One or two clients a day was about half a day because I was charging $35 a home visit or office visit. So I had my table in my car for basically 3 years doing this. And so then when I got to 3 or 4 a day, I just went all in. And because the people that I was working on, they were receiving a type of work that they'd never gotten before. We still haven't developed Mensch Method at that point. I was literally with a lot of intuition and knowing the type of work that I wanted, which was deep corrective work. That's what I was doing with people. I was still doing some stuff with oil and just really flushing things out and that type of thing. But I quickly, over the next 3 years, I got so busy doing that I was losing money traveling because I was in traffic all the time. And you guys know, even 30 years ago, traffic was horrible in Austin. So at that point, I decided what I needed to do was to open an office so that I could have people come to me. And the first place we opened up was on 31st and Lamar, a cute little house. And I was there for 3 years with a friend of mine that I went to massage school with. And she and I, that place was just blowing up. We had tons of people coming in and out of there. And at that point, I started developing what we do now, which is a combination of trigger point, deep tissue, and myofascial release, but with movement. And I can describe that in more detail in a sec. Uh, then I was living, I bought a home in Round Rock, and the traffic was so bad, I didn't want to travel anymore back and forth. We'll dovetail back to that in a second. But I actually bought the location that we have now in Round Rock, and have to give credit to my ex-wife Donna, who assisted with all of that, and she was the meat of the business for a very long time, and I could not have gotten on my path without her help and so many other people's help. Um, and so I opened that location. That was 25 years ago, and had been look, I did everything wrong. I had 4 treatment rooms, and I was working there for like 2 years by myself, and I kept having people call me up and ask me if I was hiring, and finally I listened to something, and they asked, and I said, "Sure, come on in." I trained her and then started training people and getting the method into more than one person's hands. And it's been, and then a second location, just like, I'm at the Westlake location now, and at one point I was looking for another location, and I literally was standing at my computer, and I opened up maps, and I put my finger on the spot that I wanted to be in. The very next day, I got a phone call from a friend of mine that told me there was an office opening up in Westlake. Would I be interested? I said, "Give me the address." It was directly where my finger was on the map. I called them up and I said, "I'll take the spot." They said, "We haven't seen it." I said, "I'll take the spot." Signed a lease, and now we have 2 suites here where we do canine joint and spine, which is another division of our practice. We figured out over time that dogs have the same muscle groups that we do, and when they're limping, it's because they have muscles that are too tight and contracted and have been that way since pre-birth. We'll talk about pre-birth postural deficits after a bit. And then the rest of it is, I realized that Austin still has terrible traffic, and people don't want to drive from South Austin to Round Rock and that type of thing. And it's the reason why we changed the name of the practice to Mensch Method Bodywork. It used to be Therapy Central of Round Rock. Well, people said, I don't want to go to Round Rock, and they didn't have to because we had two other locations, and we just opened the third one in Cedar Park a few years ago, and then we more recently opened the location in New Braunfels. And so Therapy Central of Round Rock would not have worked for all of that. So, and I recognize the fact, look, I have been so fortunate. I've done almost everything wrong at some point, but what I've realized in business is if you're not willing to take a risk and go out and do something, like, people are afraid to make a mistake. And let me tell you something, the mistakes you make in your life is how you learn.
That's
Yep.
right.
And then you realize that that wasn't a mistake. You actually had to go through that to learn what you're doing now so that you could get where you're supposed to go. God doesn't make mistakes in human interaction, and he never makes a mistake with the human being. He is around us, in us, through us, from since before time began to the end of time. And people feel alone and like they're just not being heard, and there couldn't be more wrong. And I also recognize, with there's a little bit of a downturn in the economy right now, and I realize how many thousands of Fortune 500 companies have gone out of business since I've been in business 32 years ago. And it's so we're doing something right. And I think the primary thing is our objective at Mensch Method is to get at the root cause of what's causing a person's discomfort. Many times that goes all the way back to the womb. And we can talk about that more in depth later, but it also has to do with, then that dovetails into sleep posture, which we actually adopt because of our pre-birth posture. It has to do with hydration. It has to do with nutrition, because if you're eating foods that cause inflammation throughout your body, and I open up an area to relieve it of pain, to get more blood supply and lymphatic drainage through that area, but what's being carried to that area is toxins because of the food that we're eating, then we failed. And like I said before, I don't like working on symptoms. I like working on problems. And if the problem is inflammation because of diet, then we're going to have to talk about that and get people on the road to getting rid of the inflammation. I've had people lose 30 pounds in a month just from changing their diet and eliminating one or two things that's causing inflammatory response through their system, which takes the stress off of their joints, out of their soft tissue, and so their body can actually start moving like it's supposed to. Then there's things like how to stretch properly, which nobody knows because nobody's coach knew when they were in high school. They just said, push as hard as you can, and when it stops hurting, then move on to another thing. And it's just, or hold it for 10 seconds, which does nothing but aggravate the tissue. And this goes all the way to the professional level. Anyway, it's frustrating because nobody knows, but the fact that I do know some of the solutions to these things, it's been this thing that has kept me just pushing forward because I know that everyone needs to hear this. And so that's kind of how we got started, how this has kind of developed into what it is. And I've been fortunate enough to have God send me, because I pray for this all the time too. I say, look, the people that are with me that aren't supposed to be on this journey, let them go. And the people that are supposed to be with me, bring them to me. And God has brought me some of the most intelligent. I love to hire people way smarter than I am because that's not hard. I love to surround myself with people that are passionate about helping other people, and that those are the people that come to me and into this practice, because it's difficult work. It's difficult physically, it's difficult emotionally, because you have people come in, some of which are just at the suicidal range. They've almost given up hope, and that's a common thread of people that come to us. It's like I've thought about renaming the business The Last Resort, because people pick this as the last resort to get fixed. They've tried everything else. They've done surgery, drugs, injections, nerve ablations, and all of those things, all of them are symptom fixers or symptom relievers. None of them cure anything. And the easiest way to describe what pain is in almost everyone's body is this: you don't have arthritis, you don't have tendonitis. What you have is, my muscle is too tightenitis. That's it. All right. So imagine my head is a joint, and my hair is the tendon or the tendons that attach to it, and my hands are the muscles. Now, if the muscles are really loose and I want to turn my head, now I can do this and this, and I can move it up and down, and everything's fine. I don't have any pain. I don't have any restriction. I can move it any way I want to. Now, imagine that my arms and my hands are the muscles and they're really tight. And so I'm pulling hard on my scalp, and then I try to turn my head. Now I can't turn and it hurts. Okay. That describes nearly every bit of pain that nearly everyone watching this podcast has. You have muscles that are too tight and contracted because of pre-birth postural deficits, because of sleep posture, because of work posture, because of lack of movement, because of working out too hard and straining those muscles, which causes them to tighten more, and then stretching too hard, which aggravates all of those things. And people say, but I'm trying so hard. The problem is they're digging a hole that keeps getting deeper. And they say, if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. And that's the best advice in almost anybody. So you have to then figure out a way out of that. And I believe that what Mensch Method is that way out of the hole. And once you get above ground, now you have hope because you see the sunlight again. And it is not God's purpose that anyone be in pain. I firmly believe that pain in our lives is a tool of the enemy to keep us from being able to fulfill our purpose in this life, because we all have one. My belief is that we are all here on purpose, and that we all have a purpose, especially in these times. A lot of people say, I don't want to raise kids while there's dragons. And my response is always this: raise dragon slayers,
Yeah,
because
I like that.
that's what they will be.
Well, I will tell you, I'll give you a testimonial, Ken, because when I first met your daughter, Lauren, who's a wonderful human, and she said to me, "It hurts, but it works." I couldn't get my brain around what that means. And I said, "Well, I have forward head posture. I've been on a computer for decades. I struggle with back pain. I struggle with headaches. I struggle with low back pain. I've been to chiropractic. I've been to traction. I've been to acupuncture. I mean, I've yeah, done all these things." And she said, "Well, just give it a try." And Jordan is my therapist. Jordan is amazing. When he went into my hip flexors, I thought I was gonna be on the ceiling and punch him in the face. It hurt so bad. Um, but what made it all worth it was when he got that muscle to relax and restored the blood flow and restored my natural posture. Like, he moved through my flexors, he worked through my neck and my back and my shoulders. I think I was there for an hour, hour and a half. When I left, I felt happy. So instead of being crabby and in pain, I left feeling happy. I left feeling at least an inch taller. And I noticed that the way that I sat in my front seat of my car felt different. Like I wanted more of a lumbar support. I'm like, this seat sucks. And I went and bought a lumbar support. So what you're doing is transformational in minutes, in moments, right? Can you dive into some of that for us so
Sure.
people understand?
Yeah, this is almost, as a matter of fact, I'm coming out with a book. We can talk about that, please, in a little bit. It should be out this fall. But the second book I'm going to write will be to preschoolers or kindergarten age children. And what it's going to be is it'll be an anatomy type of thing. If you have pain, look here. And so if you we'll have a picture of like a leg, and the knee pain will have a little star by it or something like that. And then say, because and it will have the musculature showing, and then say, which muscle do you think is causing this pain? And the answer will be the one that attaches directly to it, usually from above it, the larger muscle group above the knee. And so that could be rectus femoris, it could be vastus lateralis, it could be any one of those things. And then they'll turn the page, they'll identify, they're going to guess on that page, and then they'll turn the page, and it'll have the correct muscle highlighted that's actually pulling on that part of their body. We're going to go through the entire body so that kindergartners can figure out which muscle group is actually tight and pulling on it. So what this will accomplish is it will get young children to start figuring out how to identify what's going on with them, instead of the lies that have been fed to us that, oh, it's your joint that's the problem and we have to do surgery, or we can fix this with a pill that's going to ease the pain. The problem with both of those manifestations, look, how many people out there, you guys, I'm 66 years old. Nobody I know that's my age, very few people don't have a knee replacement or multiple knee replacements. They don't have, most people have a hip replacement or planning a second one, or the first one, or a revision of the first one that they had 10 years ago. Here's how joints wear out. It's very simple. If you get hit in a leg playing football and that muscle contracts, it contracts, and then the fascial sheath around it contracts to that position. And now you have reduced blood supply and circulation to that musculature and to that knee for the rest of your life, because everybody gets it rubbed over, but they never get it released. So what that does is blocks lymphatic drainage to and from your knee. It blocks blood supply to and from that knee. It also causes the knee to track, instead of being straight, it'll track this way or this way, depending on where the muscle is, which causes the cartilage to wear out. If all you're given is painkillers, then that's the messenger that's trying to tell you what's going on with your leg. And you're just saying, shut up, I don't want to hear you, or kill the messenger, or cut the nerves, or whatever it is. All of it is a symptom fixer, which allows the knee to degenerate to the point where now it's bone on bone. And then they've got you, it's like, well, you're bone on bone. They don't really have you. I've had people that were bone on bone, their knee joint sounded like concrete rubbing against itself, got them pain free, even with these grinding like cinder blocks, and then they could get a job. So they got a job, then they got insurance, then they got insurance, then they got their knee replacement, and now they're dancing. The whole point is, if you turn off the pain signal, you're getting rid of the thing that is actually trying to protect you. What pain in your body does is this, and this is something everyone needs to understand. Pain in your body is simply trying to keep you from tearing or breaking something if you move too quickly. So if your muscle in your leg is too tight, or your shoulder's too tight, and it's contracted like this, your body is so intelligent, it knows that if you move too quickly through any range of motion that involves this tissue, that something is going to tear, something is going to break. So you have pain to slow you down. That's all it's for. It's like a mother with a harness on a kid walking through the mall, so that they don't run into the street or run away from them. They're trying to protect their child. But in this case, your body's trying to protect you from moving too quickly. So everybody says, oh, I just can't walk as fast. Well, you're not supposed to until you correct this problem. And that's the problem. Nobody knows how to do that. The physical therapy, look, I know so many physical therapists that are so passionate about what they do when they go to school. But I'll ask you guys, have you guys been to physical therapy?
I have, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how old was what was the average age of the physical therapists in the practice that you went to?
Right out
25.
of college.
Like 20s
Yeah,
and mid to late 20s, early 30s,
yeah,
correct?
Mhm.
yep,
Okay. Now, what happened to the 40 and 50 and 60-year-olds? I mean, they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on their education. Now you have to get a doctorate degree to get through PT school. So you get your master's, then you have to get your doctorate degree. So these people have jumped through a million hoops. They have to be brilliant to get into PT school because you have to have nearly straight A's. And then you have to memorize so much stuff. All right. But here's what happens. Every time you walk into a physical therapy clinic, they're going to do muscle strength testing, determine which muscles are weak. That's air quotes. And then they're going to put you on a plan to strengthen those weak muscles. Correct?
correct.
Okay. Here's the problem. It's impossible because what they're testing and what they're finding are the muscles that are tight and contracted. That's what they're finding. You cannot strengthen a contracted muscle. Okay, if I do this muscle is contracted and it's pulling at the attachment here and at my shoulder. All right. If this can't move because it's just stuck like this because the fascial sheath is too short, and then you try to get it to, you're trying to strengthen it, it's pulling at the attachment here and here. And when you leave physical therapy, this is all going to be inflamed. Right? Anybody leave physical therapy and been in pain more afterwards than you went?
Yes. Oh,
And
yeah.
that's normal. That's normal for them. What ends up happening is they'll strengthen the muscles around the area that's contracted. So you'll get some mild to moderate relief, but there's no lasting effect. And years after physical therapy, people still say, yeah, I still have this thing. It's just not working. And so the problem is these people that are bright, they're passionate, they're working their butt off to be the best healers that they could possibly be, are sidetracked because the curriculum doesn't, one, identify that this is a contracted muscle, not an injured muscle, and they don't know the proper and best technique of lengthening this tissue. They don't. But once you get it to here, now it can get stronger. Now it can get blood supply. Now it can get proper lymphatic drainage to pull all the toxins out of that area, and it can start functioning like it's supposed to. All right. So we'll start with this. This is the contracted muscle. How do we work on this? First of all, any muscle that's the proper length, you can push all the way through it to the bone with no pain. So if it's in this position, I can push all the way through here, no pain whatsoever. If it's contracted, it's going to hurt. If it's really contracted, it's really going to hurt. So the pain that's people experience when they're at Mensch Method is simply us blocking blood supply to this muscle temporarily. That's ischemic pressure or trigger point therapy. That's what that is. So you're blocking blood supply to this muscle temporarily so it can't breathe, so it can't contract.
And it relaxes.
It
It
has to
relaxes.
relax.
And that's the
Yeah.
moment you go, woo!
Well, the woohoo part comes after this. Now this relaxes, but then I start moving this through the range of motion that it's supposed to move. Now you're involving deep tissue, because this is deep, and myofascial release. So you're getting the fascial sheath to release as well. So then once this thing gets all the way open and there's no restriction anymore, the pain signal literally turns off. Because your body, again, is so intelligent. It knows if you get it to here, you're not in any risk of tearing or breaking anything. So there's no need for the pain signal any longer. People say, are you pushing as hard? I'm pushing harder now, ma'am.
This episode is sponsored by our friends at Elcard Pro, the smartest digital business card now built with lead capture technology. Ever share a card, QR code, or link and wonder what happened after? With Elcard, you actually know who's interested, even if they never fill out a form. Whether you're at a trade show, conference, or networking event, turn those quick encounters into real connections. Learn more at elcardapp.com.
Than I was when I got started. The reason it stopped hurting is because your body knows you're not in danger anymore. And then we move on to the next area and the next area and the next area and the next area. And we do that sequentially in the order that needs to be done to maximize the amount of areas that we can get through in one session, and the decreasing the amount of pain that somebody would deal with. Because if we're working on a symptom, it's going to hurt more than if you're at the problem. And so we've learned through time and error and everything else the way to do this and the sequence to do it in. And it's so rewarding. Honestly, we've had people come in. I'll give you just a quick story. I had a lady that came in, and we were working on, well, I'm going to talk about a gentleman I worked on that who's actually coming in today. He had one of his knees resurfaced. He had the other one was in a lot of pain. He was thinking he was going to have to have that one done too. So I was working through his quads that were pulling on his knees, and then I got below the knees at the anterior tib, just below the kneecaps, and I got those things all opened up. He stood up and he was like jumping around, like he not just walking gingerly, he was jumping up and down. And he was on the phone call. He says, "Man, I think I just was able to avoid another knee resurfacing." And while he was on the table, he was telling me that about 60 years before, he was trying to get into the military, and his arm would only go up this high. That was 60 years ago. And he said, it kept me out of the military. He says, I could do anything that the commander could do or the drill sergeant, but I couldn't raise my arm higher than this, so I couldn't get in the military. I said, that shoulder probably saved your life because you didn't get into the military, and maybe you weren't supposed to die then. You have things to do. I said, let's just see what we could do with your shoulder. I worked on his shoulder 10 minutes. 10. I worked on 3 rotator cuff muscles: subscapularis, which is under the armpit, supraspinatus, and infraspinatus, that's just below the spine on the back of the shoulder. I got those opened up, and he was lying there on the table, and he did this.
Wow.
60 years of not being able to get this arm up here, and he held his other arm, and it wasn't as high as the one that I just released. And his wife was sitting across from me, and she said, he's never been able to do that.
Hmm.
Never.
Wow.
And that's just one case. And it's like, it's that kind of thing that drives me crazy when people spend all of their money, all of their time, all of their effort. And what it does is it robs them of hope, because they've gone to all the experts.
Yes.
They've gone to everybody that they trusted in the medical community and have gotten no answers. And it's across the board. People are treating symptoms, and that drives me crazy. I can't just treat symptoms because it doesn't work. Part of it is, look, I was an electrician for 10 years. I did industrial electrical work at petrochemical plants and things like that. We built substations and motors, and we hooked up all the lights. We did all this stuff. Here's the thing about electricity. You can't kind of fix electricity. You can't kind of fudge it. You have to, if there's a problem, if the lights aren't coming on, if that motor won't start, if the system doesn't run, there's a very specific problem that needs to be found. So there's no kind of fudging it or working around the issue or hoping it gets better one day if you give it a little bit of time. You have to get it done because you have a deadline. And so I work from that supposition that you have to find the root cause. Something similar is plumbing. You can't kind of fix plumbing. If you've ever tried to, you realize something's going to keep getting wet, and the water pressure is down, and there's going to be a mess and mold and everything else. So your body is really, what is it? It's plumbing and electricity. The plumbing is the blood supply and the lymphatic drainage. The electricity is the nervous system that carries signals around. If any area of your body is blocked or crimped, those systems will not function like they're supposed to. So at the end of the day, what we're doing is opening up the body so it can do its job. The body is the healer, and the creator of your body is the ultimate healer. And he built this system so well that it can repair itself if given a few just little things. It has to have access 24/7 to the tools that it needs, which is blood supply, which is carrying all the nutrients, oxygen, and all of those things that allow your body to actually grab those nutrients and heal it. If you're putting garbage in your mouth all day long, every day, which is many times we've been lied to, We've been lied to by everyone. I'm going to give you a list of one story about seed oils. We're talking about grape seed oil and corn seed oil and vegetable oil and canola oil. Those were supposed to be industrial lubricants. That's what they were developed for.
Yes, that's true.
And then the low fat, no fat diets and all that kind of stuff, which have killed more people in this country than almost anything else, making cholesterol the demon, is an essential nutrient for your body. If you don't have it, if you're reducing it with cholesterol reducing drugs, you're more likely to die 20 years earlier of dementia and Alzheimer's, because cholesterol makes up a good chunk of your brain. It just does. It is involved in the manufacture of cells throughout your entire body. Every cell that develops requires cholesterol. It's the thing that puts out the flames when you have inflammation someplace. And we have a drug that causes muscle and joint pains throughout your body. They have drugs for that. It causes depression. They have pills for that. It causes loss of libido. They have plenty of pills for that. And it's like the amount of money that is spent treating symptoms from taking cholesterol and making it a demon out of your body is massive. We've been lied to about those things. So seed oils, one story, I've heard that if you eat one French fry fried in seed oil in just about every fast food restaurant, or at home if you're doing it with canola oil, if you do that, eating one French fry is the equivalent to your body of smoking one cigarette.
Wow.
If you eat a bag of French fries, that's like smoking a pack of cigarettes. If you do that every day, that's a pack of cigarettes every day. That's the cellular damage that gets done to our bodies on a daily basis, causing massive inflammation throughout our entire system and causing our bodies to shut down, break down, gain body fat because we're trying to avoid fat. Fat is not the killer. It is not. My diet right now is so on point. I have more energy at 66 years old than I've had in 40 years. No kidding. And I would need caffeine all day long or something as natural as I could get it to get through a day where I was treating 8 to 10 people a day, because that's what I was doing when I was still on the books. I can't take a supplement anymore for energy. I don't need it. I wake up in the morning, I'm wide awake all throughout the day. When I go to bed, my head hits the pillow and I fall asleep, and I wake up the next day and I'm energized. I'm ready to go. And what I've done is I'm eating my real food diet. Basically, is if it doesn't look like it was caught or killed or picked or pulled, you probably shouldn't eat it. If it has a list of ingredients, it's not good for you. Okay, so people need to get over the notion that they're going to have their food prepped for them by everyone else but themselves. And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this into the equation. The blood type diet is something I've been following for decades now. It's based upon your blood chemistry. Do you know what your blood types are?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yep.
so.
Okay.
A negative.
A negative?
I think
Mhm.
I'm B positive.
B positive. Okay. So you got an A minus on your test. You got a B plus. You're close. Okay. So here's the thing. I'm an O. I'm an O positive. My blood was the original. That's why they call it O. The original blood type. Okay. My ancestors ate a ton of red meat. I have 1.5 pH stomach acid. A possum has 1.5 pH stomach acid. A white-backed vulture has 1.2, only slightly more acidic than mine. And a vulture can digest anything. So we can crush red meat all day long, every day. Type A developed when humans moved out of northern Africa. They had to settle next to bodies of water. Many of those people became fishermen, and their primary source of protein became fish, which is way easier to digest than red meat. Type A's have the least amount of stomach acid of any blood type that there is. All right. So if you try to eat a lot of red meat, it can cause constipation. It can cause all kinds of digestive issues, and that causes problems. Types B developed thousands of years later when humans started to domesticate cattle. They started eating and drinking milk products, and type B developed. So type B is really good with a lot of dairy products. as long as your body's producing lactase, which digests the lactose in the milk products. So each one has its own specific thing. Type AB, which is the least prevalent, only developed 1,000 years ago. Okay, the reason I bring all of this stuff up is this. If I got a blood transfusion from either of you guys, your blood would literally kill me because my body wouldn't recognize the sugar molecule on your red blood cell and it would cordon it off to the side. That creates blood clots. I'd have a stroke or a heart attack and die. All right. Even if I survived that episode, if I got another one, I would die immediately because your body then has built up antigens against this blood type. Okay. So here's where it dovetails into your diet. Your blood types developed because of the food that your ancestors ate. What happens if I eat the food that your ancestors ate that mine didn't? When your blood will kill me, what happens if I eat the food that changed your ancestors' blood types? And the answer is this, very simple. It creates inflammation throughout your body. It causes every autoimmune disease that everyone's taking pills for to suppress their immune systems. It causes weight gain and loss of energy. That's like eating poison. All right. Here's what happens if I eat the food that my ancestors ate. It repairs my body correctly and gives me energy. That's how your body heals.
Interesting.
Okay. So I've seen people do this and just give up this stuff and their life transforms. They start losing weight immediately. The inflammation goes out of their body. They have more energy they've had in years. And their body actually starts to look and feel and act like it did decades younger.
So can I ask you a question? You are clearly passionate and focused on solving people's pain. And I think that's what's driven you to be so successful. And I think that is at the heart of the unbridled creative, is like being willing to be bold and being willing to take massive action against maybe mainstream myths. Can you tell me about a moment in your journey where you came up against the mainstream who didn't want to buy what you're sharing some really amazing insights with us today? Tell us about a moment where you were like, you were confronted by the mainstream machine and how you handled that and how you got through that and around that, because you wouldn't be where you are today if you weren't bold in that moment to get around it.
There's so many.
You were grinning when she asked that.
Look,
I knew.
yeah, I don't know if I can bring this up. I was working in a major league baseball stadium on players, and I'm the only person in the history of that franchise to work inside of that facility that wasn't an employee of that organization. And it was asked to leave about halfway through the season, and a lot of that had to do with job security and ego. And I had people lined up waiting to get in, and that I was stuck in the X-ray room because there were no windows and one door to the entrance. There was one in the back to get out. And I anyway was asked to leave, and anyway that was a huge one. And it wasn't that anything was done wrong. It was like I think there were just too many people that wanted to get treated by me, and that became a problem for everybody on the medical staff on up. And so I wasn't expecting that gig was going to last very long because of those reasons. There are so many times that this has gotten so close to just blowing up, and it's there that all that I can think is that we weren't ready yet. We didn't have the infrastructure in place with our business yet. God knows, he knows, and he knows. I've been praying about this for decades. Just like I believe that there should be a Mensch Method bodywork facility in every city in the world, because people literally people have flown here from outside of the country so many times because they heard from somebody who lives in Austin who they knew, hey, you need to go here. And they flew here on faith because they trusted that person. We have had people for the past 25 or 30 years, I've been getting phone calls from everywhere in the country, every state in the country saying, is there anyone in anywhere close to me that does anything like what you do?
Yeah.
And the answer is always no, there's not, because it's not, the emphasis isn't on getting you out of the door and back to your life. Look, we fix people sometimes so quickly they've forgotten they were ever in pain.
Mm.
And
Right.
I could tell you stories like this, and it's like so incredibly frustrating, but I realize that we weren't maybe ready yet.
Mm.
And and so it's like every time that you get shut down, every time that you think that you're going to get over this hump where people are going to finally recognize what you're doing and come to it, and it just turns into a dead end. I recognize that there are no mistakes, that God's plan is still in place. And so what do? I continue to keep going to work and relieving the pain of the people that God puts on our tables. And at one point, I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep the doors open. We've been through many uh, uh, downturns in the economy over 2008, and there was multiple rounds of massive layoffs and all these things, and so it impacts people's ability to pay for our treatments, which, by the way, for a 90-minute session are half the price that you'd pay at a luxury spa for the same amount of time. Half the price. I will say also that our average number of client visits per client for all of 2024 was 2.3 visits. 2.3. In 2023, it was 2.5. We actually improved from one year to the next. We celebrated, and in every other corporation, they would have been saying, get your numbers up.
That's right.
That's right.
And that's not the goal here. I'd love to bring it down to one.
You're putting the customer first.
Tell me the tangent I was just on, because I've just circled around.
Well, we were talking about how you have come up against mainstream and you've been able to persevere through that and succeed in spite of people not being ready for the transformation that you were bringing not only to their human body, but to your industry.
Right. The point I was getting to was this. There was one of those downturns, and I'm like, okay, how are we making payroll this week? Are we going to be able to pay the bills? Are we going to do this kind of thing? And finally, I wrestled with this, and I was talking to God, and I said, listen, if it's your goal that I go bankrupt and I become homeless and I live underneath the bridge so that I can help the people under the bridge, then put me there. And I'm perfectly okay with that. And from that point on, I've been completely okay with whatever happens with my business, because I know this is all in God's hands. The other part is I have dealt with the reality when trying to figure out connections with this person knows these people. And if I get with this person, then I can get with these people. And then this will do this. And I'm trying to manipulate my reality. And the truth is, I realized at that moment, there was an epiphany that God has the ultimate Rolodex. He knows everyone. And when that settled into my little pea brain, I said, okay, you put people on our tables that you want on our tables, and we'll do our very best to get them fixed and get them recentered on what they're supposed to be doing in their life. Because pain does what? It makes you self-centered, which makes you depressed. It's the number one cause of depression, being self-centered. And you can't be any other way if you're in pain all the time, because your body's asking for help and we're throwing drugs at it. And so once someone can get out of this, and they literally, some of our clients come in, we don't even recognize them the second time they come in, because they're standing taller, they've got a smile on their face, they've changed their clothes, they've washed their hair, they've got a hairdo, and they almost are unrecognizable, because they went from somebody who is hopeless to actually having hope. And that's one of the biggest transformations anyone can have, because without hope, we have nothing.
That's right.
So, Ken, you are talking to one right now. When I came to you guys, I was in so much pain. I felt like I couldn't stand up straight. I couldn't go to an event for a couple hours and watch a concert because I couldn't stand for 90 minutes. I've tried orthotics. I told you everything that I've tried. And here I am hosting a podcast, which has been my dream for 2 decades. So and I'm seeing now through our conversation, I didn't realize going to you would help me be who I am and realize my own dreams, but now I'm seeing the connection. So thank you, and I feel quite emotional about that. Let me ask you, there's a lot of people listening right now that I think are relating to the fact that you were committed to solving a problem, which that's one of the things that we try to teach people when they're marketing themselves is make sure you're talking about the problem that you solve. You're committed to solving a problem. You're passionate about it. You're focused on every single person on the table is there for a purpose, and you're helping them to live God's, purpose in their life. I know that there's people listening right now that are saying, "But how do I do it?" Okay, Ken seems really confident. I don't have the confidence. What would you say before we wrap? What would you say to someone who's kind of standing on the edge, maybe feeling inspired about your story, and they want to take that step forward, but they're scared?
Fear is the tool of the enemy that keeps us from ever reaching our potential. When you step past fear, you're stepping into your potential. Do you think the enemy wants you realizing, one, who you are? We're all sons and daughters of the Most High. And do you think he wants you to recognize that and be bold and be fearless? Because the Bible says, fear not. How many times? Do you guys know?
It's a bunch.
365 times in Scripture. Old and New Testament combined, 365 times it's mentioned
Interesting.
on
That's like a whole
purpose.
year.
Yes, once every
Hmm.
day. And it says, fear not. That's not a suggestion. That's kind of a commandment that's not in the 10 commandments, but it's a commandment. It's spoken like a commandment.
Yeah.
Fear not. Every angel that meets somebody who they fall on the ground prostrate because they're just in front of divinity, they fall down on their face because and what does the angel always say? Fear not. We are charged to know who we are, and if we know we're sons and daughters of the Most High, there's nothing to fear. The disciples went out after they ate with Jesus. They weren't afraid anymore. They hid in that room for 3 days until they met their friend again who had died and come back. They had no fear because they knew that death was conquered. If death is conquered, what do we have to fear? None of us have anything to fear except fear. And it's like it robs us of every opportunity. All I can say is for people in the audience, if you're afraid of something, please go do it now. Don't wait. You do everything you can to get in front of what that is that you're afraid of. And what you find out is that was nothing. That was nothing but a false wall that you could have just stepped right. It's paper mache that you can step right through. Once you do that, then you find out the next thing you're afraid of and you just do that thing. So many people tell me I couldn't start a business. I can't start a business. Let me tell you something. I started a business years ago, had no idea how to run one. Seriously, I'm still having trouble with it, but I've hired people like
Yes.
bookkeepers and accountants and those types of people that keep me out of trouble. And then I just like, well, okay, so I'm planning on opening a location in Spain soon because I'm going to train somebody here that is from Spain. He's literally went to massage school in Spain so that he could get me to train him so that he could go there and do this. And their entire system in Europe is a socialist medical system that is begging for something like this because it's cheap, it's effective, and it costs way less than drugs and surgery. And so I think the governments in Europe will just send people to places like this and maybe even pay to get people trained to do this stuff so that this can be a model for their medical system there. So I'm thinking internationally right now. I think the guy's going to be starting training in September. So if you're afraid of something, just do it. Don't jump off a bridge. Don't do that. The other part of it is I ask every young person that comes through here this question: what do you want to do? And they say, I have no idea. And my answer to them is always this: ask your creator what purpose you are here for. And he will not keep silent on that. He will point you and nudge you and push you and ask God to push you and nudge you and throw you in the direction that you're supposed to go, so you stop bumping into walls and bumping your forehead, because he will reveal to you what it is you're supposed to do, and then pray for strength and wisdom and knowledge and discernment and fearlessness to do what your purpose is in this life. And when you understand that you have God at your back and God clearing the way in front of you, you have nothing to fear, nothing at all.
What a beautiful way to end this podcast, Ken. Those words are so meaningful. We're so grateful to you for being with us today. We'll definitely have to have you back in a couple months once you've got everything going on internationally. But before we wrap, tell us really quick, where can people go to follow you and learn more about you and plug into your mission?
Um, Mensch Method bodywork on every platform. So we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We got tons of podcasts there. I have one podcast that not a podcast. It was a reel that I did, has 8.1 million views. Yeah, and it's about babies being in pain. That dovetails into we've got a book finally coming out. Should be this fall. The name of the book is Every Baby Hurts. The subtitle is A New Look at Pain That Begins Before Birth and How to Help Your Baby and Yourself Heal and Thrive. There's groundbreaking information in the book. We'll have on our website soon a way to download the book where you can get it on Amazon. It'll be available in every format that you can get. There is such groundbreaking information in this book that has to do with child development and that type of thing. So I had to plug that because I've been literally trying to get this book out for 11 years. And what I realized, even in that process recently, when I read through the final version of the book, what I realized was this: all of the assertions that I made in this book about child development and the pre-birth postural deficits and everything else, everything that I wrote 11 years ago has been corroborated by the science since I wrote the book. We have references throughout the book that verify every aspect of what we're talking about. And so it took 11 years to get the science to catch up to the book, and now it's all put together. Half of the book is about infants and what happens to them and how to correct that. The second half is for adults who aren't infants anymore, but they still have these issues that were caused by pre-birth postural deficits. Well, it's always been that way. It's always felt this way, all that type of thing. And we talked about all the things that they can do. Many of the things that we talked about in the podcast today, that's all in there. I've had people tell me, no, that's a second book. No. We need to get it to everybody right now. This is too important to try to make money on a second book. I don't care about that. Let's just get the book out, and we're going to let everybody get some help with this. Um, the main number at our office is 512-244-6241. If you're lucky enough to get my daughter on the phone, who normally answers, if the rest of the therapists are busy, she'll answer and take care of you, and she's wonderful. Such a blessing. I have 4 children, 7 grandkids, all amazing blessings. But yeah, menschmethodbodywork.com is our website, and there's so much information on there. You can go through there and just see all the different things. There's tons of testimonials, that type of thing. And if somebody watching is an ex-client of mine or of Mensch Method or Therapy Central around our, and we've helped you in some way, get on your social media, tell everybody else, because me trying to tell people how this works and what we do and that type of thing is me almost trying to sell something. And that's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to educate people. But something coming from everyone, like your story, Laura, is so impactful because I didn't pry that out of you. That's just your
No.
experience.
Yep.
And once people realize that their experience that is able to be listened to by the general public might touch one person who can touch 1,000 people. And then this can grow to such an extent that there is a Mensch method in every city in the world. And that's my vision. That's what I've been led to believe is going to happen. And so we're pushing forward with that.
Well, we celebrate you, Ken. You are an unbridled creative, and I know that you are inspiring our audience today with your story. We thank you, and we will definitely have you back on for a part two. Thank you for all that you're doing to transform people's bodies, but also the wellness industry. And thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next
Right.
time.
Great
Thank
to
you,
have you,
Laura.
Ken.
Thank you, Trent.
Now it's time for the Break Free Blueprint. 3 key takeaways you can carry into your week to help you live a life unbridled.
Thanks again to our sponsor, L-Card Pro, helping professionals everywhere turn introductions into real connections. Discover the only digital business card with built-in lead capture at lcardapp.com.
Wow, Trent, what an amazing conversation with Ken.
That was
That was
amazing.
such a powerful interview for our audience. Lots of aha moments.
No doubt.
Let's take a moment to kind of recap the 3 takeaways. The first one that I heard was, pain is the messenger, not the enemy, right? Like Ken reframed pain not as the problem, but as the body's protective signal warning us not to tear or break something. It's simply trying to help us from moving too quickly or hurting ourselves. And, so many entrepreneurs, they push through pain without ever addressing the root cause. So this is a great metaphor for running a business.
Very much. Very much. Yeah. Well, as he was talking, it just made me wonder, my daughter's a personal trainer and my middle daughter, and she's always talking about root causes of things. And, with using that metaphor, pain being the signaler, sometimes we have a gut feeling that this is right and I need to do this, but I'm afraid, right? Or sometimes you have that gut feeling that, there's something I don't feel right about. And yeah, I'm fearful, but there's just something not right. That analogy in itself, that metaphor, I guess you should say, I relate with a lot because there's often times where you're needing to move through something. And his what he was talking about moving through challenges were just amazing. And the body is such a good metaphor to that. And then and I think we were going to talk about fear too, right?
So
Some of those
yeah,
points.
well, first I'll just say that I think that Ken's method, right? He's not chasing symptoms. He's
Yes.
transforming, and that requires listening to that pain, not masking it, not taking a pill,
Yeah.
not getting an injection. And that shift from a reaction to a root cause is really the key for creatives and leaders who are listening to our podcast that want sustainable growth and not just temporary relief, right? So that the second thing, yes, my takeaway from him was that your calling might not look like what you thought it was going to look like, right? He
Heck
never
yeah.
set out to be a massage therapist. He went to massage school to free up his schedule from PT. But after seeing the real healing that could happen through deep tissue work, he pivoted completely, saying, do I want to learn how not to fix people quickly, or do I want to learn how to fix people quickly and
Yeah.
transform their lives, right? So,
And when he got let go from that big job that he had for a sports team,
huh?
at least that sport team back then, he still works with sports teams, but that was a really good indication that I guess I'm doing something right,
He was challenging the
you
status
know?
quo and they couldn't handle
Yeah.
it, right? So, I mean, I think for our listeners, for the creatives that are standing at the crossroads and they're
Mhm.
clinging to their plan A or their obligation, Ken's story is a reminder that sometimes purpose reveals itself on the detour, right? So it takes courage to let go of that plan and follow the evidence of impacts when something is working or when transformation is happening. That's your cue to lean in. And he
Yeah.
did.
To keep
Right?
stepping forward in it. Yeah.
Yep. So
Loved
the
his
third
advice, stepping through the fear. Just step through it. It may not be the step you expected, but you do it, you're gonna learn something from it.
right.
You can learn from other people, but they aren't experiencing exactly what you're experiencing now. Just because someone has a framework doesn't mean it's right for you. Just because someone says you need to do this framework and do this method and process to be successful, and if you don't, you'll fail. That's not true.
Well, that's a great lead into the third big takeaway is that real transformation requires boldness. It requires faith. It requires sometimes unlearning maybe what you're taught. The aha moment for me was that Ken stands in direct opposition to mainstream medicine, and I'm sure that has not been easy. Like we heard him talk about that. He shared how he was removed from a pro sports facility for getting too many results and challenging the status quo, and he spoke candidly about the resistance he faced, right? But he kept going, and he said it's not God's purpose for anyone to be in pain, and his focus on solving a problem and getting a real result for someone is what made his business so successful. Why this matters is, our audience resonates deeply with this kind of holy defiance, right? Whether you're a coach, creator, founder, or a builder of something that challenges the convention, it's going to require you to be misunderstood. But like Ken, if you stay rooted in service, surrender, and bold action, transformation will follow. And I think his journey is proof that if God gave you the vision, he'll show you the way.
Service and surrender. That's the key. Obedience to God's plan, not my own. There's a reason why our tagline at the end and our tagline, with shirts or cups or whatever, right? To remind us, even us, if others were wearing shirts like us, then so be it. But it's a reminder for us to be bold. And we say break free, not to be free. It's to break free, because sometimes you have to break the old way to
Yep.
find God's way,
Yep.
and then to live unbridled, because to live unbridled is to be unbridled from the world's expectations of me and what the world thinks I should do. I don't know if anyone relates with not fitting in when you were a kid or something like that. I know, I don't know if I told this on my story before, but I had challenges fitting in when I was young because I was small. I was very small built then. I grew after I graduated high school, which I'm like, really? But that was the way I was created. So it's okay, but I didn't fit in. But the funny thing is I've been unbridled since I was little. Since I was born, I've always been unbridled. I didn't fit in. I was always trying to fit in, because that's kind of what you do as a kid. And I didn't get picked for the teams because they thought this little guy can't play as well, even though I could, or I run as fast, even though I could. I just had to move my legs twice as fast. But the point is we are all created different, and we have to have a herd to run alongside us, right? We have to find other people who are running free, but they're not running alone,
That's right.
you
Running
know?
free, but running together, not alone. I mean, that's why we created this podcast, my friend. I mean, that is so that those people out there that are feeling like I don't fit in, I'm a misfit, I'm going against the mainstream, I'm going against the status quo, and I'm getting a lot of pushback about it is, our message to you is Ken's message, which is be bold, move
Yep.
through fear, have faith, follow God's plan, focus on solving a pain. And if God gave you that vision, he'll show you the way. So
Amen to that. That's good ending words on this podcast. Is great.
that's
Love it.
right. All right. Until next time.
See y'all. That's right. Thanks for joining us on The Unbridled Creative.
Where we believe your story matters, your voice has power, and your dreams were planted on purpose.
And if something sparked in you today, don't let it fade. Take a step, trust the nudge, build the thing.
And if this episode encouraged you, we'd be so grateful if you'd help us spread the message.
And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Share it with a friend who's ready to build with heart, not hype.
And leave us a review. It helps more bold believers find their way here.
Wherever you are in your journey, we hope this show helps spark your hope, fuel your fire, and strengthen your faith in what's possible.
We're cheering you on, praying for you, and showing up every week to help you keep going. So, be bold, break free, and live unbridled.